Okay, we come down here. There's a hyperlink. There's a hyperlink. Hyperlink's missing. Hyperlink's missing. There's a hyperlink. Two more missing. You come down here. There's only 2 out of 5 hyperlinks. There's only 1 out of 5 hyperlinks. All of these are being updated. These PDF files that these are linked to are being updated. So there's no hyperlink to any of these documents anymore. And the ones that are updated, they've reinserted them back in like that. There's the hyperlink for that. But you come down through and you see that, look at the whole training, all disappeared. All the original documents are disappeared from document wear and tear. See, they deleted it April 11th, 2024.
Wow. That's a couple of days ago.
That's a hyperlink is still there. The document is deleted. Visibility during landing, April 11th, 24. It's taken out as well.
Somebody watching what we're saying and are getting very worried that what we're saying is correct, so they're having to alter, rewrite.
Yeah. See, that one's there. That hyperlink is there. That one's there. There's another one that has a beautiful 404 error. The ones that are left there are still basically there.
They haven't got round to revising them.
But the other ones are simply deleted. They're working on them. 55 years later, they are still updating the data. Now, why would the data change between then and now? Some of these are here. By next week, they may just disappear again, right? Just to show there's nothing there. Emergency equipment procedures, all missing.
That's not very good, is it?
Cabin temperature missing, food, PLSs, the LEM as a habitat. They have to change everything on here to cover their butt. 55 years later, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars redoing these PDF files.
They should be historical documents which are preserved.
They shouldn't be changed at all.
Of course they shouldn't.
What's wrong with them the first time they did them?
You have to ask that question?
Yeah.
So come on, all you NASA supporters, why is this happening? What is being changed? Why is it necessary? Oh dear. I do find the comments quite illuminating because it gives an idea of the thought processes that these people go through or what they're being told to go through. It's like they're being ordered to do these things, to try to denigrate what we're doing. I mean, you can tell I'm old enough and ugly enough. I don't really care what people say about me anymore. They've been doing it for 30 years. I even turned up some of the original recordings we did back in the late 90s. You know, the fact that I have to be removed from YouTube on several occasions indicates that what we're saying here is hitting a nerve. It's hitting the nerve of people who don't want others to hear what we have to say. And it's interesting that your subscriber account has increased on Apollo Detectives recently. Gone over 6,000, which is pretty good when you think of the number of people who must be watching and thinking about it.
We're blocked, and these guys say, well, we're not blocked, but we are, because I'm only getting 6,000 impressions on one of those videos, and that's nothing. That means that YouTube is only showing the thumbnail to 6,000 people in a week. And on the video, we had 264,000. We had 3.5 million in a week. So it just goes to show you. But I like what this fella here says. His name's Stephen J. 2380. And he says, oh, it just took looking at the second video regarding that little thing plopped down to see that it is a rover. The aerographic did it right away. The rest of the info afterwards is so important. And I says, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's just a shame that the NASA proponents failed to see or admit to it. Just look at all the broken parts laying around. I mean, that's a rover. That's an unfolded broken rover. And you can see the strap still hanging there where it fell from.
And it's fine to have broken pieces. It's fine when you're doing something as outrageous as this. There are going to be things get broken, whether they're dropped from cranes or they land a bit hard. They're going to get broken. That's the whole point of it. You're testing things. You're working it out. But the main problem is that NASA will not admit that. They say everything goes perfectly well. We got the astronauts back, just like President Kennedy said we should do. But it makes no sense. The whole thing is becoming a fabrication, as I think we've discovered. And the number of people who are now writing books about it and have written quite extensively about it I mean, Trevor Weaver's written 4 books on the subject about the Apollo moon hoax. Go and check him out on Amazon. There are some very interesting comments that he makes. And he started as a believer. The whole purpose of writing his books when he started was to prove that his daughter, who had questioned the Apollo moon landings, was wrong. And that's what he was doing. But the more he wrote, the more he investigated, the more he researched, the more he found that his daughter was correct. And he became convinced that the whole thing was a fabrication. Hence the title of the book, The Apollo Moon Hoax. So you've got all this information now coming out. Randy Walsh's books. He's done 3 now. I mean, this is in the last 8 years. Why are people writing more and more about the Apollo moon hoax?
Well, they're not going to stop. There's another link right there. I got that this morning. Emmanuel Garcia.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's a good guy, Emmanuel Garcia.
So he's written that. He's invited me to come on Zoom with him and have a little chat and interview me because he's now becoming quite a bit more active.
They've got the trailer to the film, Fly Me to the Moon. That's good.
Yeah, he put that in there. They're staying up to date. Be interesting to have a independent version, especially when they're so far removed from the US. And the other stuff, they have a different viewpoint on these type of things, right? And of course, New Zealand does not have a space academy of any kind. They're not out trying to puff their chest out, trying to say they're the best country in the world. They just sit back quietly and ride the earthquakes out.
Yeah, there's so many more people doing it. I just skimmed the article. I haven't read it in detail, but I will. Looks very good.
And we were looking at the fact that they're now removing and updating those PDF files. All those links are going dead. They're going to, of course, repair all that and bring them all up so you have the PDF file links again. And they're spending a lot of time to make sure that when they alter the PDF file, the original document, they want it to look like it's the original old one, even while they're updating it. So they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars doing this. It's going on for 55 years.
Yeah.
So they have written a transcript that covers every minute, every second of a trip from launch to touchdown. Now, if you put 3 guys and you take them on a trip for 12 days, let's say you put them in a Volkswagen Beetle, because that's about the size of the space that they're in, and they can't physically get out of that machine. Like, even if they're out of the machine, if they're on the moon, they're in a suit, right? They have to be protected at all times. There is so much stuff missing in that. Every minute's accounted for. They can't possibly insert that into that transcript anymore because that's a movie script that they wrote it from. So when you get 3 guys packed together and they're going to be needing bathroom facilities over the 12-day trip, I mean, what do you think 3 guys are going to do when they got these diapers taped to their bottoms, right? And they have to help each other, you know, get their wet wipes out, clean themselves up, and put another diaper on them. Like, it has to be done. So what would 3 guys do? Well, they're going to be joking around about it, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be in the transcript. Human physical responses are going to be happening. And you're 12 days in there, and you can't say that these things didn't happen. They got to be in the transcript because it's recorded. Every minute of their journey is recorded. The difficulty getting in and out of the suits, the testing of the suits before you go out, have got to be there. It's not in the transcript.
Yeah, I'm looking at the transcript right now. There's nothing there.
You're not going to find any of that information. That would happen. Those things would happen. They'd be making comments about it. I mean, Houston could be laughing their ass off going, "How are you going to get that diaper off you there? You know, are you going to clean the tape up and clean yourself up?" And you're right beside the guy. There's no way you can get away.
This is where it starts. Pretty much contact light. Hey, Houston, that seems like a very long final phase. Okay, that's the way it starts. Well, where's all of the transcript before that? They should be checking their packs. They should be checking everything. They should be double checking the pressure valves. There's nothing here, nothing. It's just all of a sudden they do this, they do that, and they're out.
That's the same as little simple things like opening and shutting the door when they're depressurizing, checking and make sure the seals. They're going to have to clean the dirt off of that seal, if nothing else, so they got their little brushes. All of that stuff. They totally missed the guys that are orbiting the moon. They just forgot about them for 6 missions. Like, a guy can't be out there for 3 days. It's not in the transcript. They can't possibly put this information back in. But here they are trying, and we can see on this website where they're deleting all the links to those PDF files because they're altering them to put them back up.
Well, then we should be able to spot the additions.
There's no way these people can sit down and think their way through the entire logic when they're altering these files. They're going to put them up. They're making mistakes. They've done it before. And when you alter one document, it has to match other documents. And we've found those many times over. One document now contradicts another document because they keep altering them. And they've been doing this over and over and over again for 55 years. They just need to stop, because there's no way you can think the entire process through. You have to put yourself in a vehicle for 12 days with 2 other people and find out what's going to happen during that time frame. And like I said, they got to change their diapers. They got to figure out how to eat. They got to figure out how to do this. They have to check those suits. All of that stuff needs to be there. You can't forget a guy for 3 days that's orbiting and not talk to him. It just wouldn't happen. And they now have to rewrite that entire transcript when they alter those PDF files, because they got to match. And they can't possibly do that because every second has been accounted for.
And also, don't forget that nobody who's working at NASA or whoever is altering these things, nobody's working there now who worked there at the time of Apollo. So they don't actually know what happened because they weren't present when it allegedly did. They're making it up. It's like the original. It's a film. It's the reissue of a film.
If you change a physical aspect, like how many times they've modified the legs of the LM itself, one of these days they're going to come out and they're going to put shocks and springs just like a automotive strut in these things. Well, then it would auto level itself. They're going to put hydraulics in there all of a sudden into them, or whatever they're going to do. And all of the documentation said that these compression events that happened in the struts themselves with the honeycomb mesh was put in there because hydraulics wouldn't work in a vacuum. You blow the seals out of the hydraulics because you're in a vacuum. And that matches up with why you have wire mesh tires, because you can't put air in a rubber tire. It's in a vacuum. It's going to blow off the rim. That all matches. But they're coming back, changing one document. And it's not going to match a photograph. It's not going to match anything else. And there's no way they can put all of that information together. They're going to get it wrong every time they do it. And yet here they are deleting all these PDF files. And I've got pretty much all of those ones for the original. When they reintroduce those on that page, I'm going to be downloading them and seeing where they've altered it. Like if it's a 1969 PDF file, they go in there and they try and make it look like the 1969 file when they put it back up. But they can never get the font right.
The font is what gives it away. And also, you've got this ridiculous suggestion that all the transmissions which were recorded have been lost. The files, the tapes have been lost, unless they turn up in rather conveniently in some McDonald's somewhere near Menlo Park. That could happen. But if they've lost the original recordings, what they're doing now is basically fictional. They can't prove it was happening at the time because they haven't got the original files to cross-check with. They lost them. So they got a real problem a problem of honesty more than anything else. Why are they changing things and they don't have the originals to compare it to? And we can't see the originals either because they've been lost. So you've got all this ridiculous toing and froing, trying to create something which never existed in the first place. As a result of your research, Scott, and Robert's continual illustration of it, NASA have got a real problem. Why don't they just hold their hands up and say, sorry guys, it was all a fiction to start with. We were trying to beat the Soviets because they beat us. We're trying to beat them to show we're superior. We achieved that. And now we're just trying to get back to the moon. Well, we're trying to get to the moon the first time now because they never went the first time.
And I think the other problem they're having is some of these people are looking at it and say, oh, well, we're going to correct it because we point something out. They're trying to catch up to us.
See, this is interesting. I'm looking in one of these transcripts here. It was on page 303. It was tape 65-7. And I find that finally we're seeing Collins doing a lot of talking here. But this is when they are on their way down to the moon. It's after that, when they're on the moon, you don't hear from him anymore. This is the strange thing. And listen to this. What they're concerned with here is that S-band antenna, aligning it. You know, I'm oscillating between 0.69 and 7/10. Very good. We've got 4,200 on the blank blank meter. So they're going over this S-band antenna. They're getting it set up. They're doing all that stuff. He said, did you purge the pack? I purged it. I purged it. Something about hydrogen. But this is way before. We're talking about when Buzz was in the LEM doing the checkout. They haven't detached yet.
People don't understand. They were in the command module until they reached the moon, so-called. That's part of the script. They get to the moon, then they fire up the LEM itself and open the hatch to get into there.
On tape 65-8, page 304, this is all it is. It's Buzz, S-band antenna steerable update for you on the angles at the AOS, 219 and yaw 30. And it goes down, 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 and they're setting all up the torquing angles and everything else down here. And then they get down to the bottom of it, and that's when they actually say 12 minutes to ignition. Of course, I would imagine that's when they're going to do the separation, like they separate and then they're going to fire it up.
What good is aligning an antenna? When you're orbiting the moon at 6,000 miles an hour, the moon is moving, the Earth is moving and rotating at the same time. How long is it going to stay lined up for? Not very long. You need a computer to do the tracking for you. And they didn't have one of those. And then if you happen to be in rotisserie mode at the same time, if you manage to line it up for a couple of seconds, it's going to be gone again because it's spinning this way as well.
Yep.
I don't know how you could write that into the transcript. I think the problem that the people today have, because we're like 3 generations away from the original people working for NASA that are now working there, is they don't even know when they pick up a file, whether it's already an updated file or not.
So they're confused.
And they don't have the knowledge of the other documents where the same information is available. Okay, and when they alter one thing here, it's going to conflict with something there. We're seeing this all the time. They can say anything like that. It happens in the photograph. They want to alter a photograph or whatever. And the next thing you know, Buzz is in the door frame and he's in the same space that the console is. And you can't do that. And they don't see it. And I don't know how they're going to correct that. And I saw that one comment where somebody claimed that they called NASA and asked about the wet flag. And then they said NASA responded that it wasn't wet, it was just a little moist. Well, that's that university professor from Indiana, and it's a long time ago I looked at it, and he was claiming that to keep the dust off the lenses on the camera, they were using wet wipes. How do you keep a wet wipe wet when you open the door of the LEM and the entire machine's in a vacuum? You got your little wet wipe thing out there. It's as soon as you depressurize the vehicle, there aren't going to be any wet wipes left either. He didn't get to that part. You know, those type of things need to be accounted for. You put 3 guys in a vehicle and they have to, first of all, keep each other alive. That's number one. You think they'd be more concerned about that. But there are going to be very personal things that are happening in that machine with 3 guys. And I mean, they're sitting side by side for 12 days. That's got to be part of the transcript. That personal conversation. These people know each other very well. They understand the situation they're in there. But there's personal bodily functions happening in there that are going to have to be addressed. They're going to joke about it, if anything else, because that's what guys would do, right?
Yes, especially military guys. They do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, you take 3 guys and you take them moose hunting, and they're flowing in. If the plane can't get back because of the weather for a week, you're stuck there. And you guys are going to get along very, very well, and things are going to be very personal. That's exactly what's going to happen. If you were to put an entire transcript in on every minute of their activities, they're going to joke around about it, or they're going to get angry, or they're going to be embarrassed, whatever, if you happen to be stuck there. It could be a very serious situation. But these guys are basically, if they claim they were on the moon and in that close of context, there would be so many personal things, just even getting suited up.
And of course, that suiting up has never, ever been properly answered. Because when you show the difficulty that an astronaut would have in getting into his suit here on Earth, and he's assisted by 3 people to get into it, in the Apollo command module, they were flying in the shirt sleeve environment. That was emphasized. It was how much care they took of them. So if they're going to get into their suits in the lunar module to get out onto the alleged lunar surface, how did they do it? It's like you trying to get dressed in the back of a car. It's very difficult to do it, especially if there are 2 of you there. And that's never been properly explained. Suddenly they're in their suits and they're out prancing around on the alleged lunar surface, but they don't show how they can do it.
Oh, look at that video that we showed. Look at how hard of a time that one fellow was trying to get in and out of there, and he couldn't stand up on his knees, couldn't sit up on his knees. How much more trouble did these guys have? You know, we showed the other video where you've got 3 guys, like you say. There's 3 technicians that are helping each astronaut get into that capsule, and another one getting into the LEM. Well, there's nobody there.
Then there should be an entire equipment check on that backpack to make sure everything is working functionally perfectly. It should be gone through, both of them, before they do a depressurization. You want to make sure the cooling system's working. You want to make sure the little fans are working. You got to make sure that the pressure release valves, everything else on there, are keeping a constant pressure in the suit. Because if they fail and the pressure relief valve just opens and stays open, you're dead.
They're more interested in the radio communications when they're going down.
But then surely if you're doing something as potentially dangerous as getting out onto the lunar surface from inside the lunar module, you would have a checklist in the same way that a pilot has a checklist when they fly an aircraft. Every time they fly the aircraft, they have a checklist that they go through, and the co-pilot confirms it or not, so they know what is correct. In the lunar module, you'd need a checklist to get into your spacesuit, to link it up with the atmospheric gases that you need to survive, all the various links that you're going to have with radio communication, with each other, with the orbiting command module, with Earth. You've got to make sure that the antenna are correctly positioned so that Houston can hear what you're saying, because if the antenna is off by a few degrees, they're not going to hear anything. You've got to make sure that all that is done. And as you said earlier, you've got to have a computer-controlled device to ensure that the antenna is correctly positioned. If it's not, Houston isn't going to hear a damn thing. It's silence all the way. But they didn't have checklists when they got into their spacesuits. They didn't have checklists to ensure that all the technological connections were correct. They had nothing.
No, and it has to be in the transcript.
I like this. This is the first time I've actually seen them say anything about those PLSSs, because on page 360, it says, over, PLSS fan number 1 breaker. We'll have to pull that one out. No, wait a minute. Columbia, this is Houston. Your LM line of sight comm acquisition with the Tranquility base is 108 plus 29. Then it goes suit circuit relief valve to auto, in auto, suit gas diverter valve to egress. I'm going over to, I'll pick you up on the Omni C. Go, please stand by. And then, I don't understand. Suit fan number 1 circuit breaker open. Buzz, this is Houston. We'd like you to pull out the suit fan delta P circuit breaker on panel 16, and then that's it, over. And master alarm, disconnect, ops hose tube, PGA blue connector, and it goes on, and that's all you really see. There's no check of those packs. There's nothing. No, there's no actual check of those PLSSs other than verify PLSS mode selector in AR. So they're going over the selectors and then they're going over the communications. This is going up and down like this. It's really strange.
It's like a film script, isn't it? It sounds right. The actors can read their lines, but it makes technologically no sense at all. That's the problem.
After that, there's no PLSS mentioned anymore. That was the check.
If they are getting dressed, and let's say they were really good at it, those 2 guys were really well practiced, and it would take a half an hour for each suit to be put on. There's an hour gone. There's going to be conversations for the entire hour while they're doing that. And then they're going to put all their hookups and their OPS pack and the PLS pack and the whole 9 yards. They're going to put all that on. That's all you hear in that check. That's still going to take another 15, 16 minutes to get all of that stuff and all those hoses hooked up and everything else on it. Then they should do a check of everything with NASA.
Yeah, of course they should.
And then they're going to start lowering the pressure inside the LEM, because that's going to be your biggest check if that suit starts to leak when they start to depressurize. And they'd want to have just a relief valve on the LEM to bring it down, keep checking the levels on everything, make sure that everything is working on their own life support system on their suit. And there's going to be a go, no go right there, whether you open that door or not. You'd never be able to close it, seal it, and repressurize it before, if your suit was failing, before you're dead.
Yeah.
Now this is interesting. Okay, now I'm going to check the PLSS here. Roll to the left, roll to the right a little. Now you're even. That's it. That was another little check that they did. That's just before he opened the hatch. Then he goes down the ladder. So that's all we see. So what I've just read, from the start to the finish, that's all the PLSS is mentioned for the checking. That's nothing.
Is there any documentation in there where they kicked the garbage bag out the door? Because it's not in the videos. Neil comes down the ladder and the damn garbage bag is already there underneath the LEM. They got the DAC camera running. The door comes open. Neil comes out, but that bag's got to come out somewhere. They got to be talking about that bag.
And also, if you look at the Hasselblad pictures of the bag, there's one picture which shows two additional, what looks like ladies' evening purses.
They're pieces of foam. I took a very close look at them. Yeah, they're pieces of foam.
Pieces of foam?
They're strips of foam.
Where did they come from?
I couldn't tell you where they were coming from. They're obviously some packing to cushion something. They could have come off the camera, whatever. I'll pull a photograph up.
Somebody must have put them out there.
There's a round aluminum ring as well on the ground that's sitting there.
These are the sort of things you'd expect to see in the transcript, especially pushing the rubbish bag out.
One comment said that Neil kicked it underneath the machine, right? But you would see some marks in the fine lunar dust. Of course, he was talking about how fine that lunar dust was.
Yeah, because Neil describes the lunar dust when he gets onto it.
This ring is right here. It's sitting there, and I don't know if those foam things are right in there. Of course, this piece here, that's the air breather off of about a 3500 GMC truck from the late 1950s. Got the handle on it, it's got the ring there. And in the other photographs, they actually flip this over when they regroom everything, and there's nothing there. Now, I saw those little foam pieces in there. They reflect kind of silvery.
Yes, sort of silvery looking. I've described them as ladies' evening handbags or purses. Now, where do they come from?
You can see that they're foam, right?
Okay, yep.
But all of a sudden, I don't know what they were covering. Maybe they were wrapped around the magazines for the cameras. Who knows?
It's definitely there.
Yeah.
That one and the following picture, there's another one. They were obviously taken deliberately to show they existed, because why would you bother taking that picture again? You've already done it once. You've got the rubbish bag, and now you've got these two weird little things which suddenly appear and then disappear, as if somebody thought, oh shit, they shouldn't be there.
What is interesting when people say that there's no blast crater, some people say it was set down on a rock. Here's the drogue dragging in the dirt, and where it actually hit is heavy there. That's how loose in the dirt is, right underneath the bell housing. If they claim it just pushed the dirt off to the rock, there's all the dirt right there.
There's an article on Aulis from a Russian scientist who claims that the rocks that the Lunokhod rover went over were very soft and they just disintegrated whenever the rover touched them.
I've seen that article, yeah, and it actually went over one of the little wheels, and that machine isn't that heavy, especially in 1/6 gravity. The rock disappeared like it was just made out of taffy or something. Now, I'm just going to shoot through here till we get to that rock that's out on the shadow. There it is there. It's not broken apart yet.
What?
They're in sequence. The rock is still together. That's the rock. We looked at it. They had it cracked open from the other shot, but here it is still together. They haven't cut this groove in it yet. It's on the same magazine.
And it's a nice touch to have that rock on the horizon as well.
You can see that this hasn't had any kind of a hack market in any way, shape, or form. But the other one we're looking at is the same rock shooting in from this side, and you can see where they gouged all that out. They cut it all away, like chopped into it.
Perhaps Aldrin tripped over it.
The other photograph with it all hacked apart happened before this photograph was taken, because this is all on magazine 40. All on magazine 40. All on magazine 40.